Yeah, our internet connection's not super, so
I also have to just make my brother-in-law going, so that'll be. Hopefully, it's not.
I don't hear him. So you're fine. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 104 of Cali Brick Clique. And remember, before we get into everybody, you can find this episode and all previous episodes anywhere you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, etc. And like always, we have Claire, the plastic architect, currently in Florida. We have Ninja.
Yo.
And
just in the same spot.
Always. And this week, we have Rodrigo Blankenship, a.k.a. Hot Rod, a.k.a. Rod the Collector. How's it going, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So before we dive heavily into who he is, if you don't know, how's everyone else's week been so far? Claire's traveling once again.
Man, I'm ready for the holidays. That's what I am.
I just bought Ninjago City Gardens again from my nieces and nephews. I am so stoked for them to open this up because they have no idea it's happening.
Dang, okay. Nice.
So I bought them Ninjago City like 3 years ago, and they literally, like, my brother's family took their time building the thing, and they were like completely excited to have that as a family build, and then they finished it. So they didn't really dive heavily into Ninjago afterwards, but I have another one for them, so I'm super excited for them to get it. So that's like my big thing. I don't know. I just wanted to share that.
Hell yeah.
Bought it again.
Very nice.
But I think I'm done with holiday shopping. Are you guys?
That's exciting. Yes, I was going to get one more thing for Sans.
See, there's always that last minute stuff, right?
Don't tell him while we're on the stream.
No, he knows what it is. There's like...
Don't you guys know each other's gifts already? Like, you bought your own gifts, didn't you?
No. We did a big mix of stuff, but like we did have to open presents like to each other earlier because we're doing Christmas out here in Florida with his family. So I'm like, I want to get him something just to open. So for Christmas. So we'll just be a box.
But are you doing holiday shopping, Rod, or no?
Pretty much. There's a few things in the mail on my way to my wife back up in Indiana. I'm hoping that they make it in time, but there is a big snowstorm coming that's starting Thursday. And so I'm a little concerned that the post office is going to get held up with the bad weather over the weekend. So I'm not sure if they're going to make it in time now, but fingers crossed. If not, she will get them eventually. But yeah, the storm is really kind of I feel like it's going to kick the post office's butt these next few days up there. So
it's okay. She'll get the computer printout of the Amazon receipt or whatever.
That's right. I can send her a screenshot and be like, here you go.
This is what you got. And then put in a really big box. So it's for the size box that it would normally go
in
if
like
you actually had it.
Type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done that before. I've gotten a box where I put the picture of it because it didn't show up. I think I did that to Venus, my wife, a decade ago, when I actually just cheated and I bought the day of, and I just waited, but it wasn't for Christmas. It was for an anniversary or something like that. Either or, thought that counts, right?
Yeah. I'm trying.
Right? It's better than nothing. Lego wise, not really much has happened officially. A lot of the stuff got finally announced. I know last week we were talking about the modular using the leaked images, but now we have an official thing being shown out. I still feel the same, Claire. It doesn't excite me still.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I saw someone do a rendition of the dark red with the navy blue that it was supposed to be supposedly, and I kind of like that one better, but it still didn't do it for me. I don't know. Maybe if I see it in my hand when I start building it, I think
that's what happened with me with the PlayStation. I really wasn't interested in it, and I got it out of the ritual of getting the modular every year, and now it's probably my favorite.
Oh, see, there you go. I was a fan of that set, so I know there's
always potential for it to grow on you.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna like it. I like all the modules eventually, especially if it has a purpose, and I'll do something with it. I'm excited for this modular for the reason of I'm starting to do city content again. Obviously, I promised that I'm going to do it. I just cleaned up my city just to finally do things, and I have, because it's a new modular and I'm out of space, I have to rearrange it, do a redo the way it's set up in certain areas. So,
which is fun though, right?
That's the fun point. Because over the years, I've just been lazy and just put it under space. Now I can, I have to literally think about how I'm going to display this stuff. But that's just me. I guess that's what's exciting about it. It's forcing me to do something else. Plus, I still got to put the Sanctum and the Bricklink Designer Program Lego store in there too. So that's like 3 modules. Got to figure out where to put them. So
It's a lot shy.
It's just funny. It's just funny to think about Shy being lazy.
I have to be lazy in other areas in my life. I can't do everything. But Star Wars stuff got all out, right? There's nothing hidden. I know, Rod, you're all over that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure all of the stuff that's going to be coming out in that first wave of 2023 got officially announced. Obviously, some people have been able to get their hands on a few of the sets early and put out reviews of them, which has been pretty cool. But yeah, nice for them to officially announce everything, so everything can kind of be talked about freely now.
So how many clones are you getting?
Yeah, I mean, this battle pack, I mean, it's not, I mean, I know the word that's kind of going around right now is massable or like clone army buildable. It's like not quite on that same level as the original one, just because they're they're like specialized troopers. I'll pick up a few. I mean, I think I picked up probably like 20 of the original 501st battle pack. I won't be getting that many of the new one, maybe like 2 or 3, just because I kind of want to keep the right proportions of everything how it's supposed to be. Obviously, like the generic 501st trooper can be the one that you have a bunch of, but these are specialists. So I figure you don't need to have quite as many of them. You only need 1 Captain Rex. You only maybe need, like 1 commander, 1 sergeant, 1 captain, 1 lieutenant, so on and so on, whatever the ranks of them may be. So I won't be getting too many of these in the same way that I did with the original one.
How many 501st boxes, original boxes do you have?
I think I still have all of them, so probably about 20.
20?
Yeah.
Then you need 2 boxes of the new ones.
2 of the new one.
That's it. Because if you have a Captain Rex, because you have almost like a company size. So I'm thinking Wikipedia, but I'm also using like the actual military rank structure and formations. So this would be like a weapons platoon, right? Of your actual line companies, like a regular company. Like for example, I have Torrent Company behind me. You can't see it. My modular's in the way, but like Captain Rex runs Torrent Company, right? That's his company in the 501st Legion. Like they would have in real life. 1 company would have a weapons company, just specialized guys that did like the heavy machine guns, mortars, and all that kind of stuff. This is technically it. The only problem is you have an officer in there, and you only need you only need so many of those. Like in a company, you only need like 4, not including Captain Rex. So it's like you only need like 4 technically of these boxes. So I'm in the same boat. I do have a number of them too, but anyone else out there who army builds wants to do more than the bare minimum that they have to, because it just doesn't make any sense. Either or, I'm excited for it. The other Star Wars stuff I'm excited for. The bomber obviously looks really cool. Never had an opportunity to get one of those, like when they first came out. I think what else is out there?
The Tusken Raider brickheads. That was that was announced slightly earlier. I think like they announced that one individually, and then the other couple sets that are coming out. So but the TIE Bomber is the other set that I'm super excited for, because I mean they only have had the one previously that still had all the blue tiling on it, so definitely nice to get an updated version.
Dang,
is there a large
that long? That's crazy.
It has been a while. It's the blue, but is there a large Star Wars set?
I don't think there's a super big one coming out with this first wave. It's just a few. I think it's just like I want to say 4 sets, maybe 3-4 sets. There's not a whole lot coming out right away. They're kind of like breaking up the waves now, where they kind of have I think they're doing like a January and then maybe like a March wave, and then they obviously have like the UCS on May the 4th, and then they have like the real summer wave later, and then big winter wave.
See, I think that's kind of interesting, because it shows that they have too much on the floor already. Like they don't have room to be able to display every single Lego set properly. Because you can see sometimes when you go in the store, you'll see like some of the sets sideways because they don't have room to be able to put it face up, because they have all these SKUs. And with all these large, big sets that came out this past year, it's like really taking up retail space. So, by breaking it up like that, I don't know if that's going to help, but it's pretty interesting to kind of see, because the footprint of like how much Lego sets you can put up, not even just in a Lego store, but like Target or Walmart, it's starting to become claustrophobic. Either or, it's interesting to see. Well, whatever. Let's just move on right quick. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, the botanicals. Those look pretty.
Were there
I'm excited for those.
I've only seen the daffodils, or what are they?
Yeah, the daffodils. Those are on the website, but 2 more got leaked for I think February release. It's like one that
Oh.
you hang on the wall and another bouquet of flowers, which is like a kind of looks like the one last time, but it's totally different flowers. I'm excited for them. Like my office cubicle at work is just Lego flowers everywhere. So
That's awesome.
uh, yeah, it's just literally just Lego flowers everywhere, and like soon to be Titanic. But anyways, Rod, let's get into you for a little bit before I get destroyed with my internet again. You want to give us your Lego story, I guess, and a little bit about yourself, in case no one knows who you are listening to
Yeah.
this. Let's just assume that there are people that just don't watch sports on here. So
Yeah.
go ahead, man. It's all you.
Guilty.
So I got into Legos by virtue of the original Lego Star Wars Clone Trooper Battle Pack, the one that came out for Episode 3 with the old Phase 2 Clone Troopers with the open visors. The one quote-unquote clone commander that I think we all pretended was Commander Cody because he was the closest we were going to get to an orange clone trooper at the time. It had the Shock Trooper, and then it had a couple of the regular ones. So that was the first Lego set that I ever got, and I got it because a couple days earlier, my dad and I had watched the Star Wars marathon for the originals, the first 6 movies. There was a marathon. I think it was on Spike TV, was the channel at the time. And so they literally just played 1 through 6 back to back to back to back, all in order. And so my dad and I just sat and watched them all together because I'd never seen any of the movies in their entirety up to that point. I would see like snippets, bits in there. Like if he was ever changing channels and one of the movies was ever on, then I would like catch a snippet of it. But I never watched them in their entirety, and I didn't see them when they came out because I was super young. Like I was born in '97, so episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out I think in '99, 2002, and 2005. So I was not old enough to be able to watch those yet. And I think it was 2007 that they did a marathon, and I watched them all the way through 1 through 6, and just like instantly fell in love with with Star Wars and all the lore and stuff. And so we went to the store a couple days later. Had to go to Walmart or something, and I always like to go down the toy aisle to look at stuff because I was already collecting other things at the time. I had started my Transformers collection that had started a few years before the Legos did. So whenever we go to the store, I always go to the toy aisle, see what kind of new stuff they had. And so when I was looking at all these Legos, and there was that Clone Trooper Battle Pack. And so I like instantly recognized them. I was like, oh, those are the Clone Troopers from Episode 3. This is so cool. And I asked my dad if I could get it, and he was like, sure. And so we got it for me, and I went home and built it and just absolutely loved it. And so it just kind of took off from there. That was kind of a good time to start being a fan, like 2007, 2008, because the Clone Wars movie came out in 2008, and then all of the Clone Wars sets started to come out. And so they introduced the animated style of the Phase 1 Clone Trooper. And obviously they started to put out all of the, the Jedi from the Jedi Council from like that, Grand Republic era. And so like it was instantly kind of like off the deep end into collecting. So like some of my first, sets that I have after that first one were from that Clone Wars era. I remember like I think it's the AAT, the big Clone Wars style AAT that had the navy blue and the light gray. Obviously we just got the smaller one recently, but that big one was an early set for me. The Republic Attack Shuttle that had the 8 stud shooters, and you could punch. It had like the rubber band automated gimmick. So you pushed a button in the back, and it would fire out the missiles, and it would like drop the rack down to reload it. So like those sets were some of the first ones I ever got, and so it was like kind of a heyday. Looking back now to see all the sets that we got during that time. So that was kind of how my Lego journey got started, was there. And then the MCU started in 2008 with I think technically the first Iron Man movie is like the first one in movie sequence, but then I think the Incredible Hulk movie might have come out before it. So those were like the first movies that kind of officially started the MCU. Now they didn't do the Lego sets right away. I think the first wave of Lego sets that they came out to accommodate the MCU was with the first Avengers movie. And so for a while, from around 2008 to 2012, it was just Star Wars. But once they started to do Marvel sets with the first Avengers, then it became Star Wars and Marvel. And so, compounded even more where now I have twice the variety, twice the sets to choose from. Definitely started to, kind of expedite the process at that point just because my options were doubled. Now they have Lego Optimus Prime, so that's pretty cool too. But I digress. That was kind of how it started for me, and it's continued through high school, through college. Now that even that I'm out of college, and professional athlete is still continued to this day. I think that as far as like kind of actively discussing and actively talking about what stuff I collected as far as my friends goes, when I was in middle school, high school, college, so on and so on, I never talked about Legos as much as the other things. So, when people would ask me like what my hobbies were, usually I would default to saying like, oh, I collect sneakers. I play video games a little bit. There was one point in high school when I was doing Yu-Gi-Oh as well. And so I was collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I would duel with some of my friends. I would tell them, sometimes, my really close friends, I might tell them that I, collected Transformers and some other, action figures and stuff like that. But I never really talked about the Legos as much as I did some of the other things. I don't really know why. Maybe it was just because I felt like that was kind of the most nerdy or the most geeky of all the things that I collected or all of my interests, but I never talked about it as much until my rookie season when I was in Indianapolis with the Colts. And for anyone who does not know the story, I'll go into it a little bit. I was competing for the starting kicker job with the Colts in 2020, and I was competing against another guy. And so, you basically, when you have a situation like that, you and another guy will be competing over the course of preseason camp or training camp, whatever you like to call it. And it usually lasts for 4 to 5 weeks. And so, we're kicking every day, going back and forth. He's kicking, I'm kicking. One day I'm kicking, then he's kicking the other day. We just go back and forth and we're battling. And it's a pretty tight competition from start to finish. And so we get to, the last day, and there's, after the last day of camp, there comes a point where the teams have to cut some guys, and they have to get their roster down to 53. We have 53 guys on the quote unquote active roster, and then you have a set number of guys that are on what's called a practice squad. And basically the guys on practice squad, they usually don't play, but they are still part of the team. And usually their job is to be a scout team, so to speak, to prepare the starters to play in the game on Sunday. But I knew I wasn't going to be on a practice squad. It was like, you're either going to be the guy or they're going to release you, and you're going to have to try and go play for another team. We had finished up our last day of the preseason camp. They were going to make the roster cuts to go down to 53 the next day, and it had to be done, I think, by like 12 o'clock or something like that. So we finished up with practice, and I'm a little, I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm like, shoot, they could cut me loose tomorrow, and I might, be on the road, trying to find a new team to play for by this time tomorrow. So I needed something to kind of take my mind off of things, take my nerves off of the situation. And so I went to Target and I picked up one of the Speed Champions Ferraris, not the old one that's out right now. It was a set that had released more concurrently with the season. So I bought that, and I also bought the Mandalorian and Grogu Brickheads 2-pack. And so I built those, at night. Come around time for the next morning, I wake up, I don't know what to do, because if they cut me, like, I'm not going back to the facility. Like, I would go back to basically pack up my locker and take all of my gear, and then, they'd be sending me on my way. But if I was, I was just waiting in the hotel room to see what was going to happen. And so they called me and told me, they were like, you won the job. You're going to be our guy. And so when I came in for practice, it was either later that day or the next day after they had made the announcement. I did a big interview with a lot of the local media, just because they kind of wanted to introduce me to the media, introduce me to the fan base. And so, one of the questions that one of the reporters had asked was, obviously this was a very, kind of stressful situation for you. Did you do anything to kind of help you, by the time until they gave you a decision on what they were going to do? And so I told them, about the Legos. I told him that I had built the Ferrari, and then someone asked me, was like, "Oh, are you a Lego fan? Do you collect them?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have a massive collection, back home at my parents' house." And so that, interview kind of blew up, and that kind of went out to all of the Colts fans as, kind of a way for them to get to know me, was to say that, our new kicker is a big Lego guy. And so from that point, then the Legos kind of went from being the collecting, item that I talked about the least to being the thing that I talked about the most, because all my teammates started to ask me about it. Other friends started to ask me about it, and a lot of other like Lego related stuff started to come up, and people would ask me about it in the media, or just friends and family, whatever. So then Lego kind of became the forefront of what people knew me for from a collecting standpoint, even though I had always collected them and had always collected several other things. I also do Funko Pops now as well. That was kind of how people got to know me from that side, from not just being a football player, but from being, just a regular guy that happens to love Legos, happens to love, Star Wars, Marvel, Transformers, Funko Pops, whatever the case may be. So that was kind of where the collecting journey, had like a landmark point where now it became something that everyone knows about. That's more or less how we got to where I am today, as far as my Lego collecting journey goes. So, come a long way from that original Clone Trooper battle pack for sure.
Wait, was there a reason why like you never said the Lego collection when you mentioned the others to other people?
I'm not sure. I mean, I do know that I told some people, but I guess maybe to other people, I didn't think that it would be as cool as some of the other stuff. Like, I feel like a lot of people are, into Star Wars, regardless of age. I feel like there's Star Wars fans, young and old, and I feel like there's Marvel fans, young and old. And so I think maybe I thought that, if I just told them that I was like a Star Wars fan or a Marvel fan, I collected other things, in that vein, whether it be, the 3 3/4 figures. Now we have obviously the Black Series, which, tons of people love, or the Funko Pops, or whatever the case may be. I guess maybe I thought that would like come across better, where like if I told people that I was into Legos, they might not think that those were as cool. But if I told them about some of the other things, I thought maybe they would think that those were cooler. Even though I felt that they were all equally cool and I enjoy them all equally, I think I just thought that how it would be perceived by other people is that the other things I collected would be more interesting than the Legos. So that's why it was never one of the first things that I would rattle off when I would tell people.
Okay. So it's more so than that you're kind of keeping in mind about like if they would be able to relate, because the probability of them being able to relate as a Lego fan is not as high as if it were like a sneakerhead or like a Star Wars fan or a Funko.
Yeah,
so that was more of that situation. So recently at like my holiday gathering at my motorcycle club, one of my brothers in my club, he and I mentioned it before, he straight up called me a nerd, right? Straight up called me a nerd, says because I was saying something, I was talking about Lego to a bunch of dudes that don't care about Lego. That's pretty much what it was. Like I straight up was talking about the collection that I have, the military stuff, and then one of my brothers was like to the top of his lungs in front of a bunch of people, nerd. I'm like, shut up, dude! Like your road name's Hulk. You're a Marvel character as a road name on a motorcycle. I don't think you have one to talk.
Maybe it was a term of endearment.
No, it was. We like to make fun of each other for everything, and for me, I'm super confident about like what I like. Like I know I like Lego. I'll tell people I like Lego. Like I know I like Taylor Swift. I'll tell people I like Taylor Swift. Like what it is, but not a lot of people have that ability to be able to like say what they're into. You know what I mean? And whether it be trying to find a common ground with someone you just met, or you're just not comfortable with showing off what you love, because there are a lot of accounts out there, especially on Instagram, that you see, and YouTubers who don't show their face, that don't want people to know that they're into Lego. Like for me, at least at work, my office cubicle is like filled with Lego, so everybody knows I'm the Lego guy at work. Exactly. I'm that guy. From someone who's coming from a very machismo sport, and for me coming from like the military and the biker world, which is also very in the same, not necessarily same facet, but like type of feel.
Yeah.
To an extent, you have to be confident in yourself to be able to succeed, right? Yeah. Like you can't just wither away and like kind of bow down to everything. Otherwise, you're just gonna get destroyed. So for you and me, it's a very easy way to be like, yeah, I like Lego. Now what? What are you gonna do next?
Yeah.
You know, like were you ever like picked on for any of your collections for your stuff, and where you have to stand up? Like, how did your teammates feel about it?
I personally didn't have too much like negative feedback really at any point in my life whenever I would tell people. And I think I just attribute that more to the fact that I picked the right people to be friends with. I think that goes a long way, in just like your quality of life is who you surround yourself with, who's in your circle. And, I think that my parents did a good job of raising me to like, appreciate the right values in other people. And so, whenever I had my friends in middle school or high school, like, I picked friends that, I got along with, that I felt like they were good people. And so, if ever, those kind of discussions ever came up where I was talking about my hobbies or interests, I had picked the right people to hang out with. And so I think that for that reason, there was always, positive feedback from that where, people were never going to put me down because I like that kind of thing. I think from that standpoint, I never really got picked on, which was nice. I mean, even in high school, like, and I think that the Legos, the Transformers, Star Wars, Marvel, whatever the case may be, Funko Pops, I think that collecting is by and large, I think still generally a little bit differently perceived than the sneaker collecting is. I mean, at least for me, this is kind of just how I see it. Like, I feel like, sneaker collecting is typically a more like socially acceptable or socially normal thing to collect than, all the other stuff that I do collect. And so I, never had an issue talking about my sneakers at any point, was always like, super forthcoming, super outgoing with my sneaker collection, saying like, oh, I just picked these up this weekend, or, I'm trying to get these new Ultra Boosts. I'm trying to get these new Yeezys this weekend, stuff like that. And, like that's kind of a way to flex almost, especially like when you're in high school and everybody is so cliquey, like, everyone wants to be popular. Everyone wants to be accepted when you're in high school. I tried not to feed into that too much as far as like, I want to be popular. I want to be a cool kid. I try not to feed into that too much, but I knew that if I showed up to school in the new Yeezys, that some people were going to think I was maybe a little bit cooler than I actually was. So, so I was always like super outgoing with the sneakers in that regard. But, even in high school, like, I found, people that I was friends with that also like Legos. Like I traded sets, traded minifigures with a couple of people when I was in high school. I ended up trading my my Rogue Shadow from the first Force Unleashed video game that had the battle damage Star Killer and all that stuff. I ended up trading that to get the Clone Wars style ATTE, the one that came out in I think 2008. So I was trading Legos with people, like actively talking about it. There was a couple guys that I would duel with, like with Yu-Gi-Oh, that I would duel with after school. I think it just is attributed mostly to the fact that I picked the right people to hang out with and to put in my circle. And so even when I got into college, obviously most of my friends were my teammates, just because we're all in a locker room together. We're all in the meeting room together for 4 or 5 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. So you get to know guys pretty well. And so even in college, the guys that I gravitated towards, to be better friends with and not just teammates with, were all accepting of, all those aspects of me. So that's been really nice. Obviously, now being in the NFL and having it be public knowledge that I am, a collector, that has come with some negative feedback, but it's come more as a result of my performance than those actually being things that people don't find to be like socially acceptable. Where if I had a bad game,
Are people tying it? They're like you were busy like playing with your Lego sets instead of practicing. Exactly. Of course.
Exactly. You start to get a lot of criticism like that, where it's like if you don't have a good game, then people are coming in the comments on Instagram or Twitter or whatever.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Like it's not even. Could you imagine like so many professional athletes party like crazy and like do they get, I'm curious, like do they get that same flack, like if like the paparazzi like takes a shot of them and then they perform poorly?
Well, I don't know if I mean, obviously guys want to go out and have a good time, they want to stay up late, they want to drink, they want to do whatever, but no one's gonna say, oh, I was getting blackout drunk, roster cuts. No one says that, even if some guys do, whether that be because they know they're going to make the team, that they don't, they don't have anything.
Whatever, yeah.
day.
Mhm.
But, it's different because people can just assume, oh, he was building Legos the day before the game, and that's why he missed an extra point on Sunday, even though there's absolutely no correlation to that.
sounds crazy.
That's where people want to come in and say, go back to Legos, go back to your Transformers, go back to blah, 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 whatever.
It's almost, I'm sorry that you get that, but it's almost like comical. It's like people just want to latch on to like whatever to like,
Of course.
To
Yeah.
blame, to make that an excuse.
and you just want to be like, no, I just played poorly. It's like,
Exactly.
I missed the kick. Oh, I'm sorry.
Like if someone clocks in at a 9 to 5 and maybe I don't know how to like measure productivity in a hypothetical 9 to 5, but maybe it's
most
delicious.
most people are usually productive for like 20 to 30% of that 9 to 5.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So,
And only about 30% of the company is productive in that 9 to 5. So
I'll use an office example just because I
Okay.
think it'll be
okay, fair.
So let's say Jim, obviously he works at the Dunder Mifflin branch in Scranton. Let's say on a typical day, Jim closes, I don't know, 8 sales in an 8-hour work day. And then Jim goes home, and that night, say he puts together his advent calendar for the day with Pam. And then the next day, he comes into work. Jim only makes 4 sales in an 8-hour day. The fact that he was only 50% of his production at work the next day is completely unrelated to the fact that he built an advent calendar thing with Pam the night before. But because that's something that Dwight knows about Jim, he thinks he has dirt on him to be able to say, oh, you must have been doing this, taking away from your work, even though they're entirely unrelated. But people on the internet, people that want to come into my comments and do all that kind of stuff are kind of the extreme end of the spectrum. There was an interview that I was watching on YouTube with Hassan Minhaj. I can't remember the name of the guys that were doing the interview, but they have they do like a YouTube podcast series. Hopefully the names will come to me, but it's 2 guys and they bring on, just famous people, influencers, and talk about kind of their career track and their success. And so Hassan Minhaj was saying that, when he does his comedy, he's trying to create his comedy for an audience that's basically represented by a bell curve. And so, the general audience, the like 70-80% is in the fat section of the bell curve. And then the internet trolls are the ones at the very end. They're like the extremists that have, either an extremely conservative point of view, we'll say, or an extremely aggressive point of view. You could use other descriptors to fit those ends of the spectrum. But, by and large, you'd say like extremely conservative person, extremely, aggressive, liberal person, whatever you want to say. Those are the ones that are in the comments, making all these hateful, rageful comments to you and giving you all this negative feedback where, by and large, this amount of people understand that your Legos and your football performance, your Legos and Jim's paper sales performance are entirely unrelated. And those are the people that don't say anything. So you don't see a majority of the people that actually have the common sense to know that, that the Legos and so on are completely unrelated to each other. That's kind of something that I try to, keep in mind, is that I know that, if I'm going to continue to be, forthcoming about my interests, about the stuff that I do outside of my work, that, I need to just understand that the people that are the most vocal are the most extreme, and, they don't really represent a majority of the people who understand the nature of the work that I do, understand it's extremely difficult, extremely high stress, and if anything, the stuff that I decide to do in my off time is something that lead to less stress for me, something that I do to take stress off of me, take my mind off of things, off of, constantly being focused on the job, so that when I come back to work the next day, I feel a little bit refreshed. I feel a little bit more energized because I was able to do something other than think about work when I got home last night.
Exactly. Another thing is a lot of those people they've never done the job that you're doing. So it's easy for them to be like, oh, if you weren't wasting your time building.
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like any of those people don't do anything that you do, obviously. Because even if they're a Lego fan, I don't think they'll blame Lego.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to happen. But obviously, it still affects you in a way,
Yeah, and I've had to, I've tried to take some measures to counteract that a little bit. Obviously, it's a little bit harder on like with the Lego account specifically, but social media like comment controls are very advanced now. When the haters come in and say their usual things, like at least on my main account, where my Lego account has about 34,000 followers, where my main account has over 200,000. So there's a lot more people that are have the potential to come in and troll me or hate on me on my main account, where I go into my comment controls and like oh, haters used this word, and like every one of these hateful comments that I saw, they used this same word, so I can put it in there as a word to block, so that people aren't allowed to put in comments that have that kind of content in there. I do the same thing on Twitter, where they can't at me and use certain language, and so that's been very helpful to filter out, some of the hateful things that people might want to say. But with the Lego account, it's kind of hard because there's lots of workarounds. Like I could put in, like if I put in for people to exclude the word Lego when they say, you suck at kicking, go back to Lego, that would get rid of all the positive comments that people might say when they might be like, oh, dude, you have such a cool Lego collection. Like it could equally eliminate good and bad. So it's a little bit more difficult from that perspective. But on my main account, which is where a lot of the people are that do more of the criticism from a performance point of view, because those people started following me more or less because I'm a football player as opposed to, a nerd and a collector, that's where the comment controls I've been able to go a little bit further with and put things more under control, where I don't receive as much negative feedback.
It is interesting that it's two very different sides of the field. You have nerds and then sports fans.
Yeah.
So they're like, man, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, it is two very different demographics that I deal with. And like a lot of times during the season, like I will spend more time, scrolling or just doing my normal activities on the Lego account, just because I feel like by and large the people that are on there know me for a different reason than they do the main account. The people that are on my main account know me more or less as a football player, as a kicker, as a professional athlete now. Whereas the people that are on my collection account by and large know me as someone that's more or less just another person that happens to like.
It's like you're more of a real person on the Lego one than you are like this like product of the NFL.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's generally I have a better time on that account because I feel like the people that are the people that are interacting with me on that account know me for a different reason and are more compassionate and less critical of me than on my main account.
And they don't have expectations really.
Exactly.
It's also like
to see Legos.
Yeah, no, exactly. They don't really care. Like, they just care that if you don't have dirty fingernails, if you're like showing or putting up advent calendars, and really, I send you an angry comment, and I'm so sorry that I was so sad.
It's totally cool. I was like, oh my god. That's like after the first day. That's why I put the disclaimer in every day now, because you sent me a message.
Because of me.
Yes, I'm like, I gotta tell people
it's
now.
Fine.
They don't.
It's
they
fine,
don't want to
Rod.
see it.
Come December 25th or 6th or whatever, I will refollow you. That's
Okay.
how it works. No, basically over like the last couple years of like having a Lego account, especially being on the West Coast, like I don't know, Shy, if you've ever felt like this, or Ninja, it's like if you have the bad habit of like, hello, all the multiple Shys, if you have the bad habit of like getting on your phone, like first thing you do, and like getting on social media, like before you open your advent calendar, it's like totally spoiled.
Oh, yeah.
And this happened to me so many times the last 2 years. And like, I've unfollowed Holly and followed so many other people over the course of time that I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And it's almost become this like ridiculous joke. Anyway, I like tagged Rod and a couple other people who did it, but Rod is such a nice guy. He like immediately was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, oh my God, I feel, and you seemed, I don't know, I couldn't tell because it was through chat. I couldn't tell if you were like actually upset, and I was like, oh no, I hope I didn't offend him. But part of me does actually, because I'm pretty serious about my my stance on advent calendars. However, I was going to say, we've had a lot of people come on here and they've talked about how like the Lego community is like such a better social media space. And if they've been into other pockets of social media or like media in general, none of them have been in like the grand scheme of media. And most of them have had, if they were in other pockets of social media, they like didn't have as much success as they did on Lego, but they've all unilaterally said that the Lego space tends to be a little bit healthier, a little bit safer. I mean, obviously it still has its problems. It's still human beings, But I'm curious because like you're in a very like extreme categorization of social media influence in both of them. And it like you don't even want to get onto your main account where you could effectively say you have more potential for growth and whatever. And you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna go on my Lego one. You know, it's like I think it's very telling there with probably the commentary that you're receiving.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean definitely like, you know, my main account with the following that I've, you know, been able to accumulate to this point has been very helpful because my agent has been able to use it, you know, as a marketing tool where I've been able to get some like, you know, some little marketing deals here and there, you know, just because, you know, the feedback that I get and the interactions that I have with other members of the Lego community by and large are more positive than what I might experience through my main account, you know, with disgruntled fans, for example. But I also see that there's two sides to the Lego community. And I think especially with, I've seen it more with like the Star Wars section of the community can also, as equally as they can be supportive and friendly to me, are critical and, you know, a little bit toxic, but not towards me, but towards the product itself. You know, you could say that that is kind of, you could see that with anyone that is, you know, passionate about anything. You know, there are NFL football fans that are, you know, critical of the game of football itself, whether it be because they don't like the rules or they don't like the officials. People could say they don't like the product of the NFL, you know, whether it be officiating or they think the league is going too soft where they're, you know, calling too many penalties on too many things, you know, where the NFL is supposed to be violent and they're not allowing it to be violent anymore. But, you know, I think in a way I almost see where when new products get revealed, whether it be officially or unofficially, and people start to lay eyes on them for the first time, there is a very toxic and hypercritical side to the Lego community that is also kind of difficult to navigate sometimes because, you know, we all love this product and we all want it to be as cool, as accurate, you know, as everything as it can possibly be. And we know that Lego as a company has the capital, they have the money to be able to produce a super high quality product. And sometimes it feels like they just kind of drop the ball on it. But sometimes it just feels like people kind of go too far in, you know, being critical about the product itself. And so, you know, it is, you know, kind of like you were saying, just to like bring it back to the prompt, you know, I do generally have a more positive interaction with the Lego community as opposed to like the NFL fandom and you know, that community. But there is two sides to every coin. And so, you know, you just kind of have to be wary that, you know, as positive of a side as there is also a negative side that it's difficult to navigate because, you know, people that are approximately our age are on our phones so much and attach to social media so much. You do almost get as much of like that negative side as you do the positive side. And so it's kind of a challenge every day to try and filter that and be aware of that and not allow, you know, some of the like hyper, you know, critical people to influence your opinions and your decisions about things because, you know, you want to enjoy the product for yourself. So you don't want to allow other opinions to, you know, kind of influence how you feel about it.
I'm curious, like, if you think that there is like a difficult path to kind of like navigate in the Star Wars Lego community simply because for you, Lego is a relaxation from your professional job, even though you do have like a successful social media account in the Lego space. It sounds like it. This is me being presumptuous, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But you're coming at it not as like a professional, you know, person that's like wanting to, you know, maybe critique Lego as at its highest caliber or whatever, which I don't think is like a healthy way to do in any which way or whatever, but unfortunately, like there are people that do that. And so they like set almost like a standard of attitude towards the product. And then there's people that like to critique and it's like almost like the hobby is to critique for them. And so I'm curious, like, do you find that like for you notice that and it's something for you to navigate because that's not your priority? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, I think at the end of the day, I'm just a big kid at heart. And, you know, Lego is a way for me to interact with the IPs that I love so much and that I've loved for a very long time. You know, it's a vessel and a medium through which I collect Star Wars, through which I collect Marvel, Transformers, right. DC, Harry Potter, you know, whatever the case may be. And I think it makes it easier from that point of view, from that being where I'm coming from and why I collect it is because it's a vessel where it's easier, for me to collect and to not.
Well, it's easier for you to set boundaries. Yeah, it's like your expectations. It's almost like your expectations of the product are just that, just as an escape and just as a collection and just as a nostalgia factor. And it's a hobby. It's truly a hobby in its truest sense, like for you. And I think it's like when people when they don't have it as a hobby, when they have it as like a professional aspect, I think that's where it gets difficult. And then also where people don't set boundaries with hobbies and they become dependent on it. And there's tons of fans and tons of commenters. It's almost like they're looking for Lego and the products that they produce to give them some sort of hole to fill or whatever in their life. And so I think there's a lot of people can be critical, but then, which is totally fine. But then there's the anger that comes after the critique. And I think that's where the issue stands. It's like people are inherently, then they're obviously not enjoying it. That frustration, that takes away from them. And then anyone else that, they emanate that too, I think. I think and Lego is not something that associate, unless you're really professionally tied to it, truly, you have a company that's producing third-party parts, or you have, you're an employee of the Lego group. I think those boundaries need to be very clear, even if you have your third-party company, because you've made a choice to become dependent on something else. And you, Rod, you made your choice to become dependent on the NFL, and you probably have to have your own boundaries with that, obviously. But that's independent of the Lego space. Anyway, that's my little soapbox.
No, I agree. And my relationship and setting boundaries with football is something that I still struggle with to this day, where, it's a little better, when you're in the NFL as compared to college. But I mean, I can even think back going to high school, you're in school from 8 to 3, you have a little downtime, but then you go over to the field house, you get ready for practice. You have practice for a couple hours, you watch a little film after practice is over, and then you go home, you do homework, eat dinner, wake up the next day, rinse and repeat. And then in college, there's obviously a lot of money involved in college football, especially being at, a big school like the University of Georgia. Obviously, they won the national championship last year. They're a big school, they're a big deal across the country. And so it basically becomes a job at that point. If you're a Division I football player, I mean, even not just Division I, Division II, Division III, whatever level, if you're a college football player, it basically becomes a job at that point. It kind of gets taken to another level. You have a mandatory study hall from 7 to 7:40, and then you go to class from 8 to 1. You come back over to the facility, eat breakfast. Meetings start at 2. Meetings go till 4. Practice from 4:30 to 6:30. You go over and you grab dinner, and then you go back over to the academic facility, and you have a PM study hall where you kind of go over all the assignments that you got from class that day, and you kind of set up a schedule for any projects you have, and then you go back to your dorm, and then you get to start your homework. But I've been in practice from 4:30 to 6:30, and then I have dinner and I have study hall until 7:30 or 8. So I get back to my dorm at 8 o'clock, and basically I do homework until I go to bed. If I have an assignment that's due the next day, I'm not going to sleep until I finish that assignment, and then I go to bed, and then I wake up at 6 a.m. the next day to start the cycle all over again. On the weekends, for everybody else, the weekend is your time to catch up on everything, but you don't get time to catch up because you're playing a game. So, on Friday, after we're done with class, we go over to the facility, we have meetings, we watch film, and then we get on a plane and we fly to Missouri. Friday night, we get to the hotel, we have dinner, we have more meetings at the hotel, and then we wake up on Saturday, we play a game, and then we fly back to Georgia on Saturday night. A normal student would have Friday afternoon, all of Saturday, all of Sunday to do whatever work they need to get done for school the next week, and then we basically only get Sunday. So, but that's just kind of what you sign up for. And so, Logan and I started dating the summer after our freshman year at UGA. We had an English class together, and that's how we met. And, one of the things that we talked about was my time is, consumed, a lot of my time every single day was going to be consumed by football for the next, 3 to 4 years, however long I was going to be there. So that's kind of been, something that we've had to, try to work through, is that, obviously I want to spend time with her. She wants to spend time with me. We want to spend time together and do stuff. I work more than a 9 to 5 because my day starts sooner and goes later than a 9 to 5 would. And so I'm gone so much, that it's kind of been something that we've had to work on. It's a little bit better now. Obviously, like being in the NFL, you don't have that school component anymore. So it kind of does become a little bit more like a 9 to 5 where, when I was in Indianapolis, we'd start meetings around like 8:30 every morning and get done. I mean, practice itself would go from maybe like 1:30 to 3:30. And then you have post-practice meetings from like 4 to 4:30, maybe 5 o'clock. And then at that point, then you're done for the day. So it definitely lines up more with what you would think of as a typical like 9 to 5, 8-hour work day, which has been nice, where we have been able to, spend more time together outside of work. But it's, still something that I kind of, need to find a balance with, because there's times when I come home and I still want to watch film because maybe I didn't have the best day at practice. And so when we went to watch our film, with the coaches after practice, like that wasn't enough for me, where I feel like I wasn't able to fully digest what happened in practice that day. And so I want to fire up my iPad and go back and watch all of my kicks again. And so that's time that, she feels like needs to be dedicated to her. And it does, because I just gave 8.5 hours of my day to work. So, she deserves to have all of my time after work. And, so it's something that I kind of struggle with, because I want to be as good at my job as I can possibly be. My mindset is, if I need to put in a little bit more time devoted to work outside of the typical work hours so that I can be the best I can be, then that's what I feel like I need to do. But I also need to be the best partner, best boyfriend, now husband that I can be. And so that means when work is done, I need to do everything in my power to really be done with work for the day so that I can devote all of my attention, all of my time and energy to her.
Yeah.
Damn. Taking
That was
notes.
pretty heavy.
Hold on.
No, but that's that goes for anyone in relationship out there. It's it doesn't have to be just football. It's everything else. I'm just saying, everyone has the same struggles. That sometimes they put more priority towards their own work, and I was like that for a very long time. I know Claire, for her entire work life, for sure prioritized work. Didn't you? For the most part, yeah. I mean,
I've never worked a 9 to 5, but I did have a different college experience. I was able to catch up and do. I think that college part is like, that's a rough one, because it's like your experience is really different. But in theory, you're getting set up for your career, right? Which I think makes sense. But I had weekends. Are you kidding me? And like, I remember there was like certain semesters that like I only had like 3 or 4 like, days of classes. And so like I had like 3 days to like do school. The problem was when I like switched majors, or when I was like taking, like 18 credits a semester or something stupid. But, then like same thing, but you end up, you get home at 8 o'clock, no matter what. Like college students end up like, I don't know, you're like busy doing whatever, but that weekend thing, that's like pretty key. That's like, that's when you get to like rest and, kind of essentially catch up and like do whatever you like didn't do or whatever. That sounded rough, but like, I think everybody who's in a relationship can empathize with the boundaries that are set up. And like, especially anybody who's like had a successful career, whatever that looks like, it is like a constant. It's like a constant thing. It's like you can't stop thinking about it. And then if you don't work on it, you feel guilty about it. But then if you work on it, you feel guilty about something else. And then you're like constantly just like feeling guilty. And it's like this, like, and then there's like nothing is productive and you're never 100% focused on anything else. So those boundaries are really hard and they're really common. And I think that, I think yours are just like, more public, because you're it's like, you mess up for me, if I like mess up at work,
only your colleagues know.
Like your colleagues know. Like I could go to jail, but that's like a different issue because I have a license and stuff. Like different stuff. But like I would those. I have insurance for that. But like I think
if messes up, it's all over ESPN.
That's like that's rough. And you've been public since you were 18, really. Like truly like in the public eye, which I think explains why like so many like other players like want to go party and want to let loose in a really aggressive way, and like cars and girls, boys, whatever it is that they're doing, it's usually tends to be in an extreme way because it's a it's like counteracting whatever that extreme pressure, especially in like a really young age. I remember like this is like going into my history, but like I love playing sports. I'm not big on watching them, but I've always like been supportive if like I'm dating somebody who's into it or like a friend of mine is really into it. I like watching sports with sports fans. That's always been fun. But I had a good beat on like the University of Oregon like football team for a really long time, and I lived in Portland and I worked I did a lot of projects for Nike, and it's all this like one big like machine over there, and it's like this big professional spectacle, and you realize that you're watching these people who are like 18, 19, and they're being it's kind of wild, like the pedestal and the pressure that they're also on at the same time, and like they're treated like celebrities, but then they're also have what for them would seem like the weight of the world. Right. And I can only imagine what that feels like at such a young age. And so for you, like, you're just like a nice guy with like a nice wife, and you want to like play with your Lego and your Transformers, and people are like, this is why you missed your kick. And it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. You could like, I don't know, like I remember like you could be like doing like dog betting or like awful like things that people have done in the past, like, you know, that you've seen in sports. And I can't get over that people are giving you a hard time about building a Lego set, like of all things. I'm sure no matter what you did, like if you were like, I'm fixing cars, or if you, whatever hobby you had that you were like, you know, I like, you know, doing hair or, you know, whatever, like people would be like, that's why you missed your kick. So it's kind of irrelevant in terms of like what that blank space that you filled in for them. But because like the Lego, I think went viral for a chunk of time, I think you kind of gave them, you know, the silver platter a little bit.
Yeah, definitely gave some people some ammunition. Yeah. I could be like fixing up my dream car, and people would be like, "Go back to your Mustang," or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He spent too much time under the hood. He's like sniffed some chemicals, and like now he can't kick or whatever. Exactly. You know, people say the stupidest things, and they're really creative. It's really kind of fascinating sometimes. But yeah. Anyway,
as far as I know we're talking about the boundaries. As far as that goes, like, you know, where my collecting for them comes from. You know, I think that definitely has helped me to have a healthier relationship with them, and is part of the reason why, you know, I've liked them for all these years, and why I, you know, hopefully can continue to like them, is because they're not for me what football is. They're not for me what other things are for other, you know, for some other people, where, you know, you almost have to look at them from like a critical standpoint, from a critical point of view. I don't have to do that. I can just buy them just to enjoy them. And so I think that having that boundary in place has definitely helped me to be able to enjoy them so much, and, you know, get so much out of them, is because I've put those boundaries in place where I know, you know, what my relationship with them is. I know how I feel about them, and I know that I don't have to look at them from any other point of view in order for them to make me happy.
Yeah. Your day job, if you were to call it that, is very aggressive and very you have so much pressure, right? There's a lot can go wrong very quickly. And to go to like another, you know, outlet, whether that be like just collecting shoes or collecting Funko or building a Lego set, it's like it's an escape in a way that kind of keeps you kind of grounded, you know, to keep you sane. Like for me, it's like the military side is very aggressive, the biker community is very, very aggressive. I like being here because everyone is not aggressive. Yeah. You know, everyone, it's a complete flip of how I could, you know, interact with people, like with Claire, with Sands, with like everybody else. Like I could literally just be myself without having to put on a face, if that makes sense. Because like in the biker world, I have to put on a face. Like in the military world, I have to put on a face. At work, I have to put on a face. Like I can't truly just be myself. And I feel like, you know, with you, like, you know, being literally everywhere, all over, not only social media, but actual real media sources, and a lot of people who like really are critiquing every movement of your body when you're actually on the field. Like just coming over here, it's just you don't have to put on a face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nice. And, you know, honestly, I think that the fact that I ended up talking about, you know, all of my hobbies, all of my interests in that interview right off the bat when I first got there, I think kind of opened up an opportunity for me to get to be more myself in the workplace, because, I put it out there. And so now, all my teammates, all my teammates watched the interview or whatever. So like, obviously they might have, tried to make jokes about it and be like, no, what's that TV picked up recently? Blah, blah, stuff like that. Some of them are, genuinely like, oh, like that's super cool. Like, I'm into Star Wars too. And, it kind of opens up, conversations and relationships with guys from that point of view. Even if they don't collect Legos, it's still kind of something that can draw a common thread for some other people. But I think that kind of helped me to where I felt like I could be more myself because I put it out there. Everyone was accepting of that. Like I never got any, negative feedback from my teammates after, word about that came out. And, I think part of that can be attributed to the fact that, the Colts organization, even though I'm not a part of it anymore, like the people that are in charge of making decisions and bringing players into that organization do a really good job of vetting the people that they're interested in and making sure that they're high quality guys so that they have a team of good people. I definitely appreciated that. And then it just let me like be more myself because it was just common knowledge that, I'm kind of a nerd. I'm kind of a geek about all this stuff. It's common knowledge and it's out there for everybody. And so I didn't necessarily have to put on a face at work because, my teammates and everyone in that building knew the other side of me that exists outside of the workplace. Everyone knew about that right from the get-go. So it just kind of made, my experience at work a little bit easier for that reason.
And it also helps that you're in the trenches with them. Like you're sweating with them, you're hurting with them, you're kicking it with them. Like you have value on the team. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it can't really say anything. Like, yeah, you could crack me for buying a Lego set, but at the end of the day, you're going to need my leg. You know what I mean? So, and I think a lot of the banter between like, colleagues like that, it's more for like fun, just because they can. And that's the main thing is just being confident about like who you are in like any setting. You know what I mean? It really doesn't affect, if it doesn't affect your work and you're cool with everybody, I think it's just something cool to just kind of stand out amongst the crowd. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
Like anyone out there who's afraid to tell anybody that you're into Lego, hey, just say it. You'll probably might get like little giggles, but have them build a Lego set or show them a picture of like what you have in your room. They'll be amazed. I guarantee it. Like I've had so many people come here. I've shown so many people pictures of my stuff, and every single time they're like, "Whoa, that's cool." I might be a little crazy, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like if you show them like a photo of like a Chevy, like a '69 Chevy. It's still, it's something you've built, something you've invested in money, like you've put time into, and it's not like you're doing drugs or getting arrested or something dumb. Like
there's definitely a lot worse things that I could be doing with my time and money than buying Legos and action figures and stuff like that. So.
Well, I think we've hit a good spot. Hey, Rod, do you have anything else you want to bring up? Say, plug.
I think I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel soon.
Didn't you start doing something like that?
I put up a Q&A on my story a while back. I just never got around to starting it. I mean, I have a channel that I use to, hello, floating hand. I have a channel that I use to watch videos and, go leave comments and stuff, but I'm not sure if I want to use that same channel to start my YouTube thing or not, or if I'll just make a new one. But I think I am going to start a channel, and then I'm basically just kind of going to, my first video will just kind of be me introducing myself to YouTube and just asking people to let me know what they want to see, just because there's so much that I could do. There's so much that I could show. I could do sneakers. I could do Legos. I could do Transformers. I could do football. I could do a little bit of everything.
Can you rap on there too? Put some of your music on there. That'll be cool.
I do have one rap song.
Ninja, but, you got to battle Rod here.
Sheesh.
So I kind of just want to, get the ball rolling on that and just see what people want to see from it. Just because it's a different type of, content that you're making, and I feel like I could have a lot of fun with it. Just because there's some restrictions in trying to put content out on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. So I just feel like it would, be a little bit more, just open possibilities, just with not having as many restrictions to be able to do stuff on YouTube.
Sense.
Thank you. You know how you're familiar with drop test videos, right?
No.
Yes, I am familiar with drop test videos.
and you're familiar with how you're a kicker for a football kicker, right?
Yes.
Kick testing. How about that? You just go to any random field goal in your area and just try to kick sets over it, and that's it. That's the whole channel.
Wow.
He's injured right now, man.
I do think that it could make for a cool video. I don't know how many videos I could get out of that, but I do think that it would be pretty cool to watch Lego sets explode in slow motion because I kicked them as hard as I possibly can.
If you get injured this way, he's not liable though.
You better put that away.
No, I would kick at my own.
Oh man, well,
Kick it.
what's the timeline on this? You plan on doing it like by the end of the year, early next year, summer?
I think pretty soon, just because in the off season I will have a little bit more downtime. So I think that would be a good time to get into it, just because I have a little bit more time on my hands to kind of learn the ins and outs of all of it.
True. That's going to be another ball to juggle in the balance.
Have fun with that.
Yeah. So that could be fun.
I mean, you have a presence already on social media. I think you should be fine.
I just need to get started. I feel like that's I've talked to some other people about getting started, and they basically just say the hardest thing is just like getting your first video out there, because after that you can kind of figure out as you go. There's obviously lots of resources available to help you produce higher quality videos, so then you just kind of put that together with being authentic and being yourself, and you've got a recipe for success.
Boom. All right, I think that's a good place to end it there. Thank you, Rod, for joining us for this episode. If there's nothing else, we wish you the best of luck with your career, and I'm sure we're going to see you in person again sometime soon. So with that being said, let's roll that music. Everyone have a good night. Peace. Woo. Hey, that was good, dude. Sorry about the cuts off. I don't know how bad that is. There's going to be a lot of sculpting in this episode like the last one.
That was...
We had 6 or 7 different shots.
Yeah.